Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge. I'm Anthony Irwin, today joined by Harrison Fagan, who struck out on Barbenheimer weekend. That is a thing that happened. I did not know that somebody could strike out on movie theater experiences, but you managed to do it twice in a weekend. That's impressive, dude.
Yeah,
Is that your L for the last couple weeks?
I mean, it's definitely the most times in one weekend that I have failed to see a movie. I've failed to see movies before, but like on busy opening weekends, whatever. But definitely the first time it has happened twice.
That is wild. That is
Barbie because of demand, Oppenheimer because I had plans cancel, and I couldn't refund just like one of the tickets. I had to refund like the group that we all bought it together, so I ended up missing it. But I'm gonna see both of them.
Yeah, I didn't try to go see either of them because I have children, but tonight I think once the kids go down and oh well, I guess it'll be yesterday by the time you guys are listening to this. Well, I'll throw this up on YouTube quickly enough that I can preview this, but I'm supposed to do Locked On Lakers tonight, which is going to be super weird. Super weird.
They're reversing your ban.
I guess, yeah.
I thought you were banned from the show. I thought that's
I'm
what
supposed to
happened
do
then.
it like a few days this week. I think Brian is out. Andy asked me if I could pop in, so I'm going to do that. But did you ever?
Yeah, see, Andy definitely likes us better than Brian because he's the one I always get the invite from when Brian's like, nah, I have better guests lined up for when Andy.
And he does.
Vacation.
From when they did their late night happy hour stuff, they were getting some great guests. But
yeah, I guess that was all Brian. Andy just I guess is not friends with anyone. I don't know. Like he's just.
But like, when you were a kid, did you ever go see a house that you moved out of after, like, you lived there a while?
Like go inside of it? Or
Yeah.
just like from the outside?
Either.
Well, so I only lived in two houses growing up. So no, like we lived in a condo for until I was like 10ish, and then we moved to like the house where my parents still live.
Yeah.
So not really, but we have driven by the old condo a number of times, and it's funny to see that I don't even think they've repainted it or anything in the years since then. It's like it's the same landlord clearly. Everything is intact. It's the Fagan original.
Maybe they kept it like a museum. It's like Harrison
Yeah,
Fagan
it's a
lived
historical
here.
landmark. They're like, this human giraffe hybrid lived here, and Corona Del Mar has declared it a historical site.
So I kind of, so when I was a kid, because we lived in a condo and then we moved into the house that my parents now live in too, and for some reason the people who moved into our house let us into the house after we were like yeah, well, because like we lived in this condominium complex that like a bunch of our old friends still lived in, so we just like happened to be at a block party there, and the people who were living in our old house were at the block party, and they asked us like, do you want to come in and see what we've done with the house? And we did. And I remember my room was generally pretty plain, so like posters here and there that I took with me in the move and stuff. I remember I walked in, and obviously I grew up in a boys' room. Explosion of pink was like, whoa!
This is where it's going. Okay, I was wondering how all this tied back.
This is so weird. Like, this is like, I was like, whoa! Like, and then so I've seen all of the press for Barbie over the weekend. It just like threw me back to that. And also, like, because I'm gonna go on
It had
Locked
already
On.
feminized your room before it even came out. That's how powerful this movie was.
It was planting. Well, the seeds have been planted. Did you read the thing that, like, I guess Mattel is like they're pitching movies with all of their old toys, and like they're moving away from being a toy company. They're going to be a movie IP company now.
That's where that's where all the money is now, Anthony. Haven't you heard?
Yeah.
Like all the money's in IP. That's the only movies that can make money anymore.
Yeah, but anyway, I picture going on Locked On Lakers today, walking into my old room, and Andy has just thrown up all kinds of pink stuff all throughout my my old show. But I'm looking
Andy,
forward
big
to it.
fan of pink. That's what they say about him. He's
Today on the
blogger
show,
Barbie.
we are when I see Andy, I think Kendall. It's just
Yeah.
it's just right there, same hair and everything. But yeah, today on the show we're going to talk about Jaylen Brown and the extension that he got. A lot of money for Jaylen Brown. A lot of Jaylen Brown. So I'm going to mock the Celtics a little bit, and then we're going to use that to discuss Anthony Davis's potential extension that he is eligible to sign, I believe, in like a week or so. As we are recording now, he can sign it in like August is when he can start getting ready to do that.
He actually, I believe, is eligible right now, according to Yossi over at Yossi Gozlan. Gozlan? Is that how you pronounce
Gozlan.
his last?
Gozlan,
yeah.
I think, yeah.
Because I know you've had him on the show. He, according to him, July 2023 until the day before the start of the regular season, AD is eligible for 3 years, 170 million, approximately.
So we're going to discuss that, and then look, we are in the middle of the off season where there's very little to talk about. But I do find like you and I have lots of discussions about all kinds of stuff, and if people want to check out, they can check out. If you want to stick around, you can stick around. But Harrison and I are going to talk about kind of the state of comic book content and large IP content, as we just saw this giant success that Barbie had over the weekend compared to some of the flops that we've seen from comic book stuff. And we'll discuss that. So interesting, weird show that is very much a July 25th show. Anyway, let's talk about Jaylen Brown. So, is it 5 years, $304 million is the number that he got from Boston. It took a long time to get there, and I kind of wondered if this was kind of the inflection point, if Jaylen might be the inflection point where guys don't just get the max that they are due. And we've seen teams in the past make that decision not to give that extension and instead trade a player because the number was too high. But I kind of wondered if this was going to be the first signing that, where the player re-signs with the team that he signs for, but not at the full max, just because he is eligible at that max number. Turns out that is not how this played out. He does get that full max number. I don't know if he's ever going to play under that extension for the Boston Celtics. I think he'll play out this year, and I think there'll be a lot of trade talk surrounding him throughout this year for a variety of reasons. But my first and all right, well,
he's been in trade talks his whole Celtics tenure. Why change that now?
There's that. There's a lot going on here. One, I think it's really cool that Jaylen gets this amount of money, right? Like that's the thing that you have to get out of the way, and you have to congratulate him on the success and blah 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 blah. So, way to go, Jaylen.
Secondly, you sound really hyped about it. You're like, yeah, blah blah blah.
I don't know why we have to congratulate people about this. Like, we live in a weird time where we have to like root for these guys to become way richer than we'll ever be. But anyway,
I love it when people become part of the 1%. Personally, I think it's great.
It's the weirdest thing. I saw all kinds of people like if anybody criticized the contract, it's like, oh, you just hate that he's rich. It's like, no, it's that like Boston's
good for him. He is marketable still. That's how the world works. Like his ability to dribble with one hand has earned him more than Barbie and Oppenheimer made in their opening weekend combined.
So I think that like my basketball takeaway from this is that like Boston is worse now. Like, so long as he's on their roster, Boston is going to be worse because it's a very simple, and it's probably an oversimplification. I'm very good at those. But generally speaking, in a capped sport where individual earnings themselves are capped, if you're going to have a player on your contract or on your books who makes more than every other player in the NBA, but isn't the best player in the NBA, you are going to be hamstrung to a certain extent, right? Jaylen Brown isn't Giannis. He's not Jokic. He's not is Jaylen Brown a top 10 player?
Probably not. No.
The fact that we don't know?
No, scratch probably. No, he's not. Yeah.
So like
I was being too nice.
For me, like the Laker fan, I'm like,
He
cool.
basically made the All NBA team. Not, again, this is not to diminish his achievement. It's sort of incredible, what he's done going from like the player he was at Berkeley to the player he is now is sort of astounding, and a real testament to sort of his hard work and growth and all of that. But yeah, I mean, he basically, reporters kind of got like bullied into voting him onto the All NBA team because it mattered for him money wise.
Yeah, Aaron is literally calling me right now. Should I take it?
On the air? Yeah, just tell him you're on.
Yeah. I'm confused by your question. Hey, buddy, I'm literally recording with Harrison right now. Do you want to say
You're
hi to
live.
Harrison?
What's up, Aaron?
Hello. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing?
This is great audio. I can barely hear him, so I know the audience is not going.
There. I think you should hear him now. I turned it way up on my phone.
Okay.
I guess this is a good time to tell you guys I'm flying back in like a month. So are we all getting together? Aaron, Benihana at your place?
Benihana at Aaron's place.
Real Benihana though, not that bullshit you try to ask Benihana.
All right. Well, Aaron, you called me because I was asking about AD's contract, and we figured out the number that he can sign this year or this month. He can start signing it all the way up until the beginning of the season.
From August 4th until the beginning of the regular season, he can sign the extension. That is correct. The reason I'm calling you is because I was confused by your question. You said, what is the max he can get this year? But obviously the extension would not impact this year's contract nor next year's contract, which he would have to opt into as a condition of getting the extension. Is an ETO, early termination option for next season, which he would not be able to exercise. So he would have to opt into next year's contract and then also get, I think it's 3 for 167, I believe. So it would be, if he signs that extension, it would basically be the Lakers would have him for the next 5 years, including this upcoming season. So from 23, 24, and then that would be the first of what ends up being 5 years of him with the Lakers.
Aaron, would you give him
167? He just confirmed the Lakers are offering less than the max.
Max he can get this year, like it would change. It does not change.
No, it doesn't.
This year's contract. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you give him that contract?
Absolutely.
Oh, I was hoping you would like say that it was cutting out. The connection was cutting out. Like.
You go through a tunnel.
Oh, it looks like I lost you.
I can't hear you. Yeah, absolutely.
I can't believe it's even a discussion. But anyway, that's what Harrison and I are going to discuss.
Where would you put Anthony Davis? Like, I don't care if you have him 5th or 7th or 10th or 12th or 14th or whatever on the best players in the NBA list. Like, those dudes get max money. Why wouldn't you give him max money?
I mean, Jaylen Brown just got it, so yeah.
Yeah, Harrison is saying Jaylen Brown just got max money, and it's like
Jaylen Brown just got $304 million. So Anthony Davis, while older, to be fair, is better at basketball than Jaylen Brown. So
Jaylen Brown will never be as good at basketball as Anthony Davis is right now. I'm gonna go ahead and predict that one.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
I mean, is Jaylen Brown and look, that's a California Golden Bear, so I'm rooting for Jaylen.
I was gonna say Aaron's gonna defend his guy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have his 1 year as a California Golden Bear, where I believe he had 6 turnovers in his one tournament game for Cal when they were the 4th seed and lost.
I think he shot like 6 for like 30 from the field or something. Like,
and I think
yeah,
three of those 6 turnovers were offensive fouls. So, but despite that,
it was a good preview of what he would do in the playoffs, like when he got to the NBA.
Yeah, he activated playoff mode in the tournament.
Is my boy gonna actually like learn how to dribble in an NBA game? Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's usually the kind of question I want to ask as I'm handing the guy a $304 million contract. Hey, can you learn to dribble? It's kind of like the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's like, Andrew Wiggins, can you care about basketball? Try, maybe.
It's like, I promise.
Not until he joined the Warriors. So
All right, Aaron, I'm going to get back to the show.
All right, fellas. Harrison, I still don't hear you, but nice to talk to you if you were speaking also. But I can hear you. Love you both. Enjoy the show. And, yeah.
See you in a month.
Anthony Davis gets all his money, and Benihana
All right.
Later.
That went
We're
well.
gonna
That
get
went.
so
You
many
know what?
complaints about the audio quality of that segment. I promise you. You need to listen back to it for sure.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. All right. So the central point of that, and the reason that Aaron called in the first place, was the number that AD can sign at, which is 3 years, 167 million, which
No.
would mean that
Yeah, Yossi said approximately 170. So I don't know. I took that the Lakers are offering less than the max. That's the headline that I'm running with at SSR.
that's when Aaron
Lakers-
does do like the sorry, we got to. I can't.
No, I'm telling you, the Lakers. They said they're like Anthony Davis. You are worth $3 million less than the max. Okay, we are holding steady at 167. All right. No,
Yeah.
we will not go to 170. Okay, there's a veterans minimum contract that we can squeeze into that space, and we need to save that for when we have to sign a buyout guy. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I
Actually, not even because it's a multi-year deal. So it's like.
yeah, it'd be
It's like-
$1
it's a
million
buyout guy each
over
year
the
of
extent
contract.
of the
It's one
a
buyout
prorated
guy each-
minimum.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
prorated minimum.
Um,
Like, AD, you want us to sign a wash center at midseason or not? It's 167, okay?
we could sign Andre Drummond 3 different
Do you
times.
want
Anthony.
Tristan Thompson on the last day of the regular season every year?
So I want to let's go back to Jaylen though, and the point that Aaron was making, the point that we have made at this point, is about Jaylen the basketball player, who I think, by the way, is I think he's overslotted as the second best player on Boston's team, and although he thinks he's underslotted, he thinks he should be the best player on a team, which good luck, Atlanta.
I mean, Jeremy Grant thought that he should be the best player on the team. So this is not an uncommon view among NBA
Oh, no, no,
players
no.
that are,
Like, yeah,
near that level. Yeah.
all NBA players have that kind of confidence.
You don't
Like,
make it to that level without thinking that you can sort of get to that, next
I don't know if
tier.
you listened to Dion Waiters. He did a show he did an appearance on Dan Levitard's podcast, and he talked about his confidence level, right? And he was like, for him, he was like, look, man, my mom got shot, my dad got shot, I think one of his grandparents got shot, and he's just like, you have to be super confident in basketball when that's going on in your life. And I'm not saying that that's what every player develops their confidence from, but he went on to they were talking about Kevin Durant, and they were like, it's got to be maddening to guard Kevin Durant because no matter what you do, KD is going to get a clean shot off, and you have to hope he misses. And he's like, yeah, but that's how players have to feel when they're guarding me. It's like, that's Dion Waiters saying that at the situation that he's playing in right now. Whereas, Jaylen Brown, I would imagine, and look, I also kind of get it.
Who also once said, even when I was fat, I was still getting buckets. So, Dion Waiters has never lacked for I have that screen grab of that quote graphic on my phone in my folder. I use that sometimes.
He repeated the line. He was saying that he reused the line when he was on Levitard's show. But Jaylen Brown though, look, he will.
Jaylen Brown's like, even when I was one-handed, I was still getting buckets.
Yeah. But Jaylen, all right. So when I say there's a lot going on here, it's on basketball and it's not basketball, right? Because he says that he doesn't always feel comfortable in Boston, and that there's a bunch of racial stuff that goes on there or racist stuff that goes on there that he doesn't particularly like. And so you have that as an aspect of this conversation. He is, to your point earlier, sick of the trade rumors that always surrounds him. That anytime any player becomes available that the Celtics might have any interest in, it's his name that gets thrown in there, right? I would imagine,
and it's not even just that, but it's every single time it happens. There are reports that Jason Tatum is recruiting the guy.
Yeah, there's also that. I would love.
Does anyone think no one is arguing harder your point that Jaylen is underqualified as a number 2 option on a title contender? Nobody believes that more than Jason Tatum.
I just
It's like
I
every
would
single
like
time.
to be.
It's like, oh man, Jason Tatum, a lot of connections with Bradley Beal. Jason Tatum, he's been recruiting KD. Jason Tatum, this summer he's recruiting Dame. He's like, guys, I need someone else to dribble besides me in crunch time, and it can't be Jalen.
Do you think Jalen sits there with like his friends and family and just like waiting for the situation where Jason's name is actually the one that they're like lobbing out there to bring him some help? Like, he's just sitting there like, all right, KD's available. Send Jason.
I'm frankly
No, it's me
surprised we
again?
didn't get like a,
Shit.
Jaylen Brown is recruiting Kyrie back in a sign and trade for Jason Tatum or something headline this summer.
I believe they see eye to eye on some stuff.
I
But yeah,
believe so.
but yeah, I get why NBA players are that kind of confident. You have to be that kind of confident to succeed in that world where it is very much zero sum and it is very much cutthroat, and it's zero sum sometimes on your own team, right? Like Jalen gets this contract, Jason's going to be ready for his soon, I would imagine. And, is Jalen going to be on the team when when Jason is eligible or gets that next contract? I think that's very much in doubt. I'd be surprised if he was.
Jason is actually extension eligible as well this offseason
Oh,
for
boy.
he's extension
For
eligible
$305 million?
No, 2 years, $98 million. Don't think he's going to be taking that one. It's unlikely. He is eligible for the 5 years, 304 next summer. So, we'll be. It's going to be so funny when his gets done on the first day of free agency. There's no leaks about, they're going back and forth, they're doing this and that, whatever. His is going to get done the first day of free agency, and then Jalen's going to demand a trade. That's how I'm predicting next offseason plays out. Jason also gets a player option on the final year, and somehow a bigger trade kicker. I don't even know if that's legal. I don't think it is, but somehow they work it in there.
I remember, I forget which two players it was. I think Kobe was one of them, or another player probably at his position, but one player got their contract, and then the next player negotiated a contract that was $1 more. Or it just happened also in baseball, where Mike Trout.
I remember Kevin Garnett did this, where he wanted to surpass Alex Rodriguez as like the highest paid athlete in professional sports, and so he did I think it was $1 million more on his multi-year contract than Rodriguez had just gotten or something like that back in the day.
Yeah, Mike Trout also. Yeah, so he also specifically asked for $100 million more than Bryce Harper got. He was
fair ask.
Yeah, I mean, you look at. Although I think Trout's had some injury issues since.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Neither of those have gone very well.
Yeah.
Still, Dodgers, go trade for Ohtani, please. Just give me this one, please. Anyway, what do you think though about Boston getting worse though? Do you think because
I don't think they're worse. I mean, they may have gotten worse. They didn't get worse this offseason through this extension, obviously.
Right.
It's
the same player
same
who's
money,
there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think they maybe got worse this offseason through the other transactions that they made, and that will, remain to be seen. And all of the other questions about them, to me, those have not gone away because of any of this. I think that long term, which I assume is what you're implying. I think long term this does. It's impossible to argue the other way, that it doesn't put them in a worse position as far as roster building. And the thing that I hate most about this new CBA is that it has forced us to make this point because, previously it's just ownership, just spend. Just spend. It doesn't matter. Sign the good player. Sign them for the maximum amount of money. They've earned it. Their salaries are artificially capped at a certain amount. Especially for these contracts, I think maybe the best point that you're making is, as far as Jalen, is these Supermax contracts, they're either the best deal that you can make in sports because that player would be getting so much more if it was an actual uncapped, free market where teams could just throw in their biggest bid and there was not an artificial, kind of ceiling on what these guys could get. Your prime LeBrons, your Giannis's, even Jason Tatum when he's going to be coming up for this, all these guys. That's the best value contract in sports when you're giving it to one of these guys that's like a top 5 player in the NBA. But when you're giving it to a guy who is not that, it is artificially constraining, especially under this new CBA, which has put in actual basketball reasons to not spend money. And so now it forces, blog boys like us to sit here and actually pocket watch on these guys because, we're sitting here, like when the Lakers make this deal with AD, it's going to make it harder for them to continue to build around AD and in whatever sort of form that, that extension takes. I'm not saying that they shouldn't give him that extension. They absolutely should because, that's just what you do. And
do you think they will?
I think they will. Yeah. I think they will. I didn't when the offseason started. There was like I remember McMenamin was sort of saying, originally that they might wait and this is sort of like a prove it year for AD type of thing. And then his tenor even sort of changed when he was on the low post. So like he expected, and I sort of trust him. He's really well plugged in
especially
like
with
both
clutch
camps there. Yeah. And so I do think it will get done. I think it's the right decision for the Lakers, even if there are obviously concerns, long term about paying AD that much money, into his mid-30s. But I think you sort of have to do it just because, do you really want to waste more of the season having this guy feel like he's, playing for a contract or arguing with you or like you don't have his back or whatever? Is he going to come back quicker from injuries if, he's not locked up under a long-term deal? I certainly don't think so. If I was his representation, I would not advise him to do that, especially given his sort of long-term injury concerns. So I think it'll get done. But, extension, taking it back to the point, extensions like these, they do now under this new sort of super tax, second lead apron, whatever you want to call it, where, you start getting knocked back draft picks, you start getting, I don't care about the owners having to pay more money, whatever, that's not my concern, but losing draft picks, getting draft picks knocked back, having, sort of your options hamstrung, the inability to make trades, the inability to sign buyout guys, aggregate salary, not inability to make trades, but harder to make trades, with matching salaries and all of that stuff. It does create a basketball argument to be like, hey, this is good. Having good players on your team is good. And so, even if you have to overpay a little bit and not even overpay in most of these cases, these guys would get this contract from another team. It's just, it does create very real constraints for you now.
Yeah. It's why I thought Jalen
before it created optional constraints that you could then criticize the team owners for choosing to hey, they're choosing not to spend money. This is their choice. Now there are this is the smartest thing the owners did in the new CBA is that there are actual basketball arguments to not do this. And so they can hide their cheapness under the auspices of real basketball consequences.
It's why I thought Jalen would be the first one who would get less than the full max that he could get and remain on the team.
I don't think he would have signed.
Maybe not, but still, even if he doesn't sign, even if Boston doesn't offer the full $304 million, and maybe that's why this took so long, by the way, he and his camp just didn't blink. And he said, no, I'm just not going to sign if not for this. Trade me if not. And they said, well, fine. We'll keep you on the books at that number.
It took quite a while. So, seemingly the only win Boston was able to get was not having a player option in there.
Yeah. And in talking to some people at Summer League, there was legitimate conversation about how this would all play out. And, there were a few camps on it, I would say. There were some people that I spoke to who said this will probably still wind up getting done. And, there's no rush on this kind of thing. And, there's vacations and stuff like that, it maybe explain why this was taking a little longer than usual. But the most people that I spoke to, I would probably say the vast majority of people that I spoke to said yeah, there's legitimate negotiating going on here. The reason that is noteworthy is because historically with your best or even second best player on your team, if they're max eligible, it's always just no negotiation necessary. Here's the contract. You can sign it. Go enjoy your offseason. Everybody just kind of moves on. And
yeah, we're all going to pop bottles and like of champagne and celebrate this, and you know, we're all happy to continue to working together. You know, that's normally how these contracts go.
Right. And that isn't to say that like that isn't still kind of the case here with Boston. Like I would imagine that there are plenty of people within the within
you think
the
Jalen's
Celtics
flying in to have dinner with Brad Stevens to celebrate this?
I can't even fathom them eating at the same restaurant. Like I see Brad Stevens as like strictly Chick-fil-A. Like it's like all he eats is Chick-fil-A.
Brad Stevens seems like big Applebee's guy. You know, he like a Denny's. Like
IHOP.
Yeah.
I hoop. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but this was an interesting one, and like, you know, anytime I've criticized the CBA, the pushback has always been, well, there are things that the players got also, but in no way am I saying that like the CBA was just the owners winning, but the fact that this is now a negotiation at the top of the sport, and you have people like Austin Rivers saying the people in the middle of the sport are getting squeezed, which is also therefore going to squeeze people at the bottom of the sport, because there's going to be the middle type of player who's going to be fighting for the minimum contracts on good teams that now aren't going to go to a certain kind of player. Like,
yeah,
the CBA, you know,
I think the middle class that existed between the mid-level and, you know, the max contract, like a lot of those are just going to be gone. And so I think that this CBA, like I think there's going to be a lockout in a couple of years when the players kind of see that, when the middle class sees the consequences of this CBA, and that it has sort of allowed owners to be like, hey, yeah, like, you know, hey, all we can offer you, Christian Wood, is the minimum.
Yeah.
Because we have these tax constraints and we have all this other stuff going on.
I really laughed at, again, Vegas is such a unique situation, because normally I just stick to my bubble here in Texas, and I cover the Lakers the way that I do. And there are a few people that I text around the league, and there's enough, like I have enough of a net that I can just kind of like get by and be fairly well informed on what's going on and be able to purvey it to you guys. But in Vegas, it is very different. In Vegas, it doesn't matter almost where you are, especially if you stay at the right kind of hotel. You are going to bump into people. You are going to sit next to people in the gym. You are going to bump into people at the bar there, like right outside the main entrance.
You went to the gym?
Oh, yeah. Like a few times, actually. Yeah. I was working hard, Harrison.
Look at you.
I would have recorded except for that stupid EDM music, which people barely did.
Oh, you meant like where they're playing the games.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
You had me go to the gym?
I thought you were claiming.
I don't even know if my hotel had a gym.
You ran into Brad Stevens on the Stairmaster. You know.
No, I saw him at IHOP.
Yelling at Jaylen, "You're not getting a player option," while walking upstairs.
Yeah, but yeah, when you're there at the gym, you know, you're able to have conversations with people or be parts of conversations that like you wouldn't normally be parts of.
Yeah, no, for sure. I just
my favorite like tool that like gets added to the toolbox over years is having a conversation with like, you know, most conversations with like multiple people, right? Everybody kind of like circles off, and then you have another conversation over there that's kind of circled off and whatever. And it's always kind of funny to see like if there just happens to be enough actually NBA important people having that kind of conversation, all of the circled off conversations around them are held at like muted levels so that people could kind of sort of like listen in to what's going on over here, you know? And yeah, like, you know, I remember, I'm not going to say who I overheard saying this or whatever, but I do, you know, as part of having a conversation over here with some Celtics people, we were all listening into this conversation over there with actual Celtics people. It was like a Celtics game, I believe it just ended. And I'm kind of listening in, and it's like, yeah, Jalen's pissed. Jalen wanted everything. And I remember hearing that, and everybody in my conversation just like stopped talking. He's like, guys, we actually have to make it look like we're talking.
No,
how
Anthony,
about
it's
how
you know,
about Peyton
it's like-
Pritchard, everybody? What does everybody think about
It's like everyone's been saying, it's totally normal that these extension negotiations take multiple weeks, that a player goes on vacation in the middle of them without getting their extension. That happens all the time.
Always.
And then, yeah.
So I just think that, watching this kind of unfold has been really interesting. What happens next is going to be super interesting because
Do you think he demands the trade before the extension kicks, or it kicks in next summer?
Well,
so
that's
he
the thing,
actually
though,
can't
is that like
demand it
I'm probably going to compile for Substack. I'm probably going to compile like a history of the most recent trade demands and how many of them happen before their extension even kicks in, right? Because like Dame hasn't
Dame's
played under
extension has not kicked in.
his current
KD's
kicked in.
extension had not kicked in. I don't think when he demanded the trade the first time.
Bradley Beal's, I think, just kicks in now, so he never played for Washington under his.
No, I think he re-signed as a free agent, so I think he's been on his deal. He waited till free agency and then re-signed.
All right,
because that was how he got the no trade clause. You have to create a new contract. You can't get the no trade clause without. So he's been on it.
Yeah. So, but still, like
there's been a lot of guys that have demanded them before the contract even kicked in. Yeah.
He also, the contract technically hasn't kicked in. He hasn't played for Washington under his next contract. Like it didn't happen. Like
No, he did last year. Yeah.
No, I thought this year was going to be, or he. Oh no, he
became
re-signed
an
last year.
unrestricted
Okay,
free agent and re-signed with them on a new deal. Yeah.
All right, never mind. But there are enough examples of this where I want to go through and like look at how many guys have not played for their team, and I think Jalen's going to be the next example of guy.
And from the second Bradley Beal signed, it's still the spirit of what the point that you're trying to make is alive. Like everyone knew that eventually he was going to get traded on that contract. There was no possible way that Washington was going to be able to build a winner around him on that deal, but while he was still in his prime.
That's always the thing that annoys me the most is the
number one reason being he's not good enough to justify that contract. And so it was going to be impossible to build a winner around him on that deal.
And when I say it annoys me, I mean like this this environment annoys me in that like we have really forced players to choose between payday and competition. And in this next CBA, that's even more
that's
fully
actually
realized.
No, Anthony. The preferred term is player sharing and parity. Okay, that we've players. There's now parity in the league. Okay, it's not players choosing to get the bag from a bad team. It's players choosing to make a bad team better and more competitive on a night-to-night basis. And they definitely have a real chance in the playoffs. Okay, they're not.
Poor Bradley Beal making $50 million. It's like, congrats, man. Like Bradley Beal signing that contract for $50 million a year and then escalating from there or whatever. That's great to hear for Bradley.
Seems like a nice, good dude too. So like, good for him.
But also like as soon as he signs that, he knows I ain't winning shit here. I'm not winning a thing here. And he knows it. The Wizards know it. The whole league knows it at that point.
Do you think
and
the
then
Wizards
he's gone.
knew it? Do you think the last Wizards brain trust, like an ownership, knew it? I don't know. You might be giving them.
No, I think they knew it. They
Ted
knew he
Leonsis
wasn't.
said this is our Kobe, and we're going to give him the contract that he deserved. And I don't. I think ownership believed that they could build a winner around Bradley Beal.
I think that the way that we're defining winner or winning here is different.
Yeah, they may define. Yeah, he didn't. He's like, we could build a play-in winner around Bradley Beal.
You can win one play-in game with Bradley Beal.
Those two home gate, home gate game playoff receipts are gonna pay for this contract.
Let's talk about AD though, really quickly, and then we'll move on to nerd stuff. But which. Like talking about the CBA and the way that we were just talking about it is also very much.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're more continuing nerdy. Different nerd stuff.
Nerd stuff. But Anthony Davis, though, I still am a little skeptical about. Like, I actually think that this might take. Some hard conversations are going to be had within the Lakers about Anthony Davis, and I think at the end of the day, you still want to have that guy under contract, so at the very least, you're able to flip him for something whenever that working relationship ends. But the reason Dave McMenamin started the offseason talking about AD's extension the way that he did is because the Lakers have not felt very comfortable about post LeBron AD.
Yeah.
You know, like that is just the reality of the situation,
And fair, to be honest.
They've been hoping. LeBron has been hoping that AD would be the better player between the two at this point. That it would be a AD
getting
team.
the leaks this year's comments that AD is the vocal leader of the team, and that he's
right after he signs the extension.
Yeah,
as soon as he signs the extension.
I'm frankly surprised we haven't gotten them yet. You know,
yeah.
Like about how AD is, you know, like I don't know, like Maxwell Lewis saying that AD already reached out to him, and that he's like, you know, he set up the group chat himself this time. It wasn't LeBron. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. AD is trying to arrange the training camp that everybody goes to.
Yeah.
Right. Except LeBron already has it scheduled, so it's just kind of awkward. It's like, we'll just go to LeBron's. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that.
Do you think AD is going to go on a vacation in the middle of the extension negotiations? Like, does he have one planned for mid-August that's just normal and it's not about walking away from the table and you know, reaching an impasse and negotiate? He's just going to go on vacation without it, you know.
I'm honestly kind of surprised that we haven't gotten like a whole bunch of AD workout videos.
We got the boxing one.
Oof, that one didn't. AD, hire a boxer.
Yeah, AD's got a. I don't know. AD like does not. He makes me respect LeBron's leaking off-season hype abilities a lot more. Watching how AD like tries to hype people up.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
he's I know what the fans want. They want to hear that I want another center. I want to go back to playing the 4.
And like, how do you think that lands with LeBron? Because LeBron has to play the 4. Like that's that's the unspoken thing here. Is that like you can't, Anthony? You can't play the 4. I play the 4 now. Like,
yeah. Like we're both 4s. 2 4s. 2
like,
4s and Jackson Hayes.
All right, what if we have you at the 3, I'm at the 4, and Rui at the 5? What do you think? Like, how can
Rui at the 1? Rui at the 5.
What do you think? Like, do you think like AD thinks they just make up these numbers? It's like, wait, so which one's the 1 and which one's the 2?
It's all a mindset. Like they just got to tell him he's the 4 and LeBron's the 5. You know, like it's just.
But also not to like bulk up to play the 4.
Yeah.
You know, please slim down to play the 4. All right. I think I don't know. I also probably think that they wind up giving him the extension because, again, it's just more valuable to have him on your books than have this hanging over him for the entirety of the season. But
just, you know, for all the long-term injury concerns, there's a chance that AD just continues to play at about this level for a long time. You know, like it.
Yeah. He needs to learn how to shoot if he's going to do that. But
getting a good player under contract is usually a good thing. And worst case,
that goes back to the point you made earlier, though.
Look. The point is like the Lakers. You know, longer term, even if AD's contract, like let's say it does become an albatross at some point during that extension. You know, it becomes a bad deal. You're signing. It's a 3-year extension, and so are we thinking that it's going to be an albatross for all 3 years? Like that something's going to happen? Like no. Like does it happen? You know, and it's an albatross with 2 years? Then okay, it's almost a massive expiring contract, and the Lakers have taken painstaking care to have draft picks going down the line, and so you attach you do what the Lakers do, and you attach a draft pick, and you get you attach some picks, and you get a good player coming back. Like I don't think that it's for me, there's very little question that this is the right decision to make.
Yeah.
It would be different if he was like, I'm going to wait till free agency so that I can sign a 5-year extension. I would rather, frankly, sign him to the 3-year extension coming off of this current deal than wait until this deal is done when he'll be eligible for like 5 years and even more money, you know?
Yeah. I also think, like you mentioned, McMenamin's tenor on this conversation over the course of the offseason. For those who listen every single day, and certainly every single Thursday, whenever it is that Aaron and I record, Aaron's tenor has kind of changed, right? At the beginning of the offseason, he was kind of saying, like, it'll be interesting to see how everybody approaches this, right? And we just had him just a second ago say, absolutely, just get it done, you know? And so like that, like if that's probably a little too meta. That's I probably pulled. This is about as
Aaron's my most trusted insider on this podcast by far.
On this podcast for damn sure. Yeah. It's like between him and Regla. Like it's not me, but it's Avery's up here too.
Oh, it's not you. I thought you were billing yourself as an insider now. So I
that's me. That's yeah. Hey, I had somebody tell me in an iTunes review that I have been an important part of this person's journalistic approach to becoming a journalist. So you haven't. Take that.
Prayers up for that person.
Yeah, but yeah, this is about as far back behind the curtains or far back I'm willing to pull the curtains is like, it's not just what Aaron says. It's also like the way that he says it. And like when he doesn't even hesitate, that's usually a pretty good indication that like the Lakers aren't probably going to hesitate here, especially
Nor
like
should they really.
Well, and by the time that extension kicks in, so it's going to be a 3-year, $170 million deal. So it's like 50 and change per year, right?
Or 167 if the Lakers offer him the 3 less than the max,
Yeah, and by the if you sign the extension now, right, and I don't believe that those numbers change as the cap goes up. You're going to have 5% increases, You're going to have a couple of those 5% increases before you even get there. So that 50 million, 52 or 53 million number is, going to be a lower percentage of the cap than, to your point earlier, it would be if the Lakers let this expire and then sign into a brand new contract based off of, where your percentages are based off of the cap at that point. And then that becomes more per year and potentially more years that he is expecting you to sign, right?
And almost certainly more years if you're going to re-sign him because someone else is going to offer him a deal,
Right. Well, and that's the thing, though, is that like Jaylen, second best player on a team that was in the finals a year ago and a team that was in the conference finals this last year, right? They've made lengthy playoff runs every year that he's been in, a Celtic. He is always going to expect you give me everything here.
Yeah.
And again, fairly so. Like I just ripped off.
AD's not only a better player with like a higher status in the league, but he
also won a
brought his team
championship
title. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he is going to, whenever that time comes, if the Lakers did let this run out, his expectation would be, nope, you're giving me everything that I am that you can give me, especially with the agency that represents them too. They're very much known for fighting tooth and nail for every fucking thing, which by the way is their job. I've never understood why people had a problem with them operating the way that they do to get their people everything. And yeah, that's the situation they're going to be walking into.
I think the area where people, not necessarily teams, criticize, because of course teams are they're like, this guy's not giving me a discount. That's their job to want to pay less money for good players. But I think the area where the criticism was somewhat legit was fighting tooth and nail for that stuff, not getting it. And then, those guys kind of losing out on, a deal that ended up being more than they would have made necessarily.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's move on to the...
rebounded just fine, but Nerlens Noel, probably not going to make up that extensions that he passed up wanting the max or whatever, that kind of stuff.
Well, I also just kind of wonder when a player forgoes that extension, especially a lucrative one.
And ultimately, that's their decision too. It's not the agency.
Well, yeah, no, but I'm saying from team standpoints, once a player forgoes that lucrative extension, and I'm not saying that this is a collusion thing. I don't think it's that serious or anything like that. But once a player passes up on that, more lucrative extension that was potentially overpaying in the first place, if teams are just oh, well, kick rocks then. Go get the minimum. Go get whatever you can get anywhere else. And you become less incentivized to work with that player on their actual next deal be, that
I'm
could
sure
have
there's
been
been
replaced.
cases where that happens, where it sours,
Yeah.
like it sort of like sours the relationship.
We saw it with Schroeder to a certain
Yeah.
extent, right? Like we just
Yeah,
watched
Lakers
it.
could have brought him back using his bird rights. They didn't have a whole lot of interest in doing that.
Immediately.
at
Like,
that
remember the offseason started and it was just like, yeah, no, probably not.
Yeah.
And then he played well for Germany and he came back here and to his credit, earned this next contract that helps make up for some of those losses. All right, I do want to talk about the nerd stuff.
All right,
I find
let's talk.
I find it really interesting, a lot of this stuff. And my starting point here is like,
Are we telling people that this is where the basketball discourse ends? They can
the
drop out
basketball
if they want to?
the basketball conversation, like we might make allusions to it or whatever as part of jokes, but for the most part, this is going to be other nerd stuff. This is going to be some Star Wars stuff, some MCU stuff. No, it is MCU. Yeah, MCU stuff, and comparing that to some of the other non comic, I guess DC comic book stuff that has done well in recently. So the first example that I have is Avatar, the second Avatar movie, which came out and is like the third movie ever to do 200 million plus or 200 billion plus. Some
No,
ridiculous. It's in the billion range.
I think 2 billion sounds possible. 200 billion sounds impossible.
It's like 2.39 billion or something like that.
Yeah,
but so it has obviously broken records and stuff like that, and it is also IP, right? It's the sequel to the first Avatar movie. The first Avatar movie was transcendent at the time that it came out because James Cameron did so many things visually that it made up for, and I grant this, a somewhat lacking story. This next movie comes out however many years afterward, right? Almost like 10 years after the first movie had come out. And again, visually transcendent, incredible like viewing experience, and importantly, a really good story, I thought.
I will say the story was much better in the second one. Yeah.
Yeah. And viewers came out in droves to see it because they knew they were going to get all of the same visual stuff that James Cameron puts into his movies, but also kept going back to the theater because the story was worth going back and seeing,
Yeah.
And I think, you look at one of the things that I have grown kind of sick of are these big like Comic-Con appearances that Kevin Feige makes where he announces a decade's worth of movies in advance, even if like the story doesn't appear capable right now of holding up an entire decade's worth of different universes branching off. And in this case, different multiverses that keep branching off. Yeah. And I always was kind of skeptical of like, as soon as they brought multiverse stuff into the fold, I always kind of wondered if this was where they would start to lose some of like the casual comic book fan, because once you introduce the multiverse and you make deaths less impactful and you remove some of those stakes, you're asking people to do a lot of homework to stay invested in all of this stuff. And lo and behold, as both Marvel and DC went into multiverse stuff, both of all of their entities, except for like Guardians of the Galaxy, which was again an incredible movie,
and importantly, a sort of standalone within that Guardians kind of corner of the universe.
Yeah, and like you look at
people didn't need to have seen 7 Disney Plus shows to understand what was going on. The only thing was like you sort of needed to have seen the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, but I don't think that that's like too much of an ask because that's directly sort of a mini sequel thing with the actual title and main characters and all of that.
Well, and also like it wasn't so critical to the story that like you would be lost without it, right? Like
No, exactly. It was just like
Cosmo.
It was like, wait, Mantis is Peter Quill's sister, like but yeah. I mean, you could probably just pick up and be like, oh, I guess I just forgot that. I don't know.
Yeah, and like they didn't spend a whole bunch of time on it. They just like okay, this is the reality now, and then we're moving on, And I think like I think a lot of the stuff like and I think Star Wars the way they've treated Mandalore is an example of this too, where they are nerding out so thoroughly that they're losing the casual viewer. They're spending so much time on lore and multiverses and the impact of the ripple effect of all of these multiverses that people are just like, hey, can I just see Spider-Man do cool stuff? Can we just try that? Like, can we have some fun with that a little bit without me having to feel like I have to do trigonometry to keep up? And you know, when these movies have not done as well or outright flopped at the theater, there's been a lot of excuses made for them. Well, it's post-COVID, and you know, we just aren't seeing the same type of you know, number of people interested in putting themselves in that situation. But that just isn't the case. If it isn't good, it's not going to do well. Avatar 2 was good, and it did really well. Barbie, Oppenheimer, both really effing good movies. Top Gun, I think even the new Mission Impossible.
The new Mission Impossible has done well, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it's made, but I believe it's done well.
If you make a good movie, and
especially
you know,
if it's a movie with Tom Cruise in it, importantly, major still box office, like the ultimate.
Crazy.
He's like the Michael Jordan for dads. Like they just want to see any movie he's in. You know.
It would be great if he just started wearing monarchs in all of his movies.
Yeah.
Like,
way too big of
Nike
jeans,
Air,
you know.
Yeah. But the thing with Tom Cruise though, like the reason he has had the staying power he has is because he pushes those movies so fucking hard to be good. He demands that those movies are so effing good. And like Top Gun, you're not gonna go back and bring back a movie that was relevant 40 years ago or 30 years ago, and get people to care about it unless that movie is really good. And I think, you know, what the MCU has allowed itself to do is it's just kind of like, it's kind of like that artist that, you know, whatever music artist you want to use, where early in their career you could like hear the hunger in their voice, you could hear like the desperation to make it in their music, and then like later in their career you start to notice that they're kind of going through the motions with their production, and the music isn't as like groundbreaking and all that, and they're just like, yeah, I'm gonna make this album, it's gonna sell however many million, and I'm going to keep doing this thing. And then every so often there are artists who keep like recreating themselves, like Taylor Swift, right? Taylor Swift, when she first broke into this stuff, when she was like 16, 17 years old, was like, you know, in country. She was doing country stuff and folk stuff and all this stuff. And then she's really, you know, recreated and evolved as an artist, and really
for Tim McGraw. Like,
yeah,
that's
like
how country she was.
Right. And you know, she goes from that and evolves as an artist often enough and makes good enough stuff, good enough music throughout her career that now she is the biggest star in the world. And I think the lesson that I keep taking away from Marvel and from DC, I haven't even seen Flash yet. But like like, well, they keep on like trying to spoon feed people all these cameos to polish a turd, but at the
sadly the cameos were the best part of that movie. It was very fun to see Michael Keaton back. Like Michael Keaton was having a great time making that movie.
And I'm sure, but it's still polishing a turd. Like substance of the movie, the substance of a lot of this content, unfortunately, right now is shit. And I don't know, like you are much more educated, which would surprise nobody, but given your and my relationships for the last decade, you are much more educated on like the lore and, you know, all of this stuff. Have you found your interest kind of waning as they've sunk so deep into the lore?
Yes,
and multiversal stuff, and
I don't know how much it is to do with the multiversal stuff so much as, like, for me, where I felt it most, and you mentioned this, was Star Wars, where it just, you know, Boba Fett became midway through. It was like Mandalorian season 2.5. And like, if you hadn't watched that, you wouldn't have gotten Mandalorian season 4, which, like, unfortunately, I watched all of Boba Fett, and watched them, you know, kill my favorite action figure / like cool spin-off character that had this incredible original expanded universe story and like after the movies and all of this stuff, and like had, you know, and then they're just like, yeah, no, he's like a mob boss, but like a altruistic mob boss now. I don't know. Is this anything? He rides a dragon sometimes. Like it was just, and poor Tamir Morrison. I felt it more in Star Wars, where every single thing feels like they're just trying to MCU-ify Star Wars, where they're like, you know, Mandalorian season 1, you know, really cool, just standalone thing, and they learned the wrong lesson from it. They're like, you know what this needs? This needs more characters that we can make spin-off IP about. Like, so we're gonna have like completely charismaless Cara Dune be like majorly featured, and then center a spin-off around her until she publicly rebrands as an extremely problematic. I don't remember.
Yeah. We'll just say she rebranded.
She rebranded, and, you know, lost her Star Wars series as a result that she was going to get. And then it's like every single, you know, character that appears, it's like, oh, like it's either like, it's like, oh man, look, there's Jack Black. Isn't that cool seeing him in Star Wars? Or it's, you know, it's like, hey, you know, aren't you excited for this, you know, random spin-off show that we're doing about this character, or like this random whatever? It just like, it feels like shameless IP spin-off creation more so than storytelling. Like they're just like, look at this action figure, it's cool, I'm gonna move him over here, and won't it be cool if this action figure just bangs heads with this one? That's so cool. And it just, the MCU has started to feel more like that, although I think it's more in the MCU, it's more that the characters that people were so invested in and had cared about are sort of all transitioning out or transitioned out entirely, and they're just like, hey, you know, these background people, aren't you excited about them in expanded roles? It's like, well, I don't know. If the story's good, I guess, but most of the stories haven't been good. Their pacing on their TV series, they're like, you know what? We want to make episodic television and do TV and have, you know, like be able to tell these deeper stories, but we're going to pace it so that the first 3 episodes are all exposition through dialogue, and then we are going to rush through to the conclusion through the final 3 episodes of every
we've decided that all the series have to be 6 episodes too.
Yeah, like we don't want to budget for 10 episodes, because at that point we're dealing with like, you know, more than a movie budget. So we're just going to basically make a slightly longer movie with horrendous pacing. And then also the movies now, you have to have watched these series with mostly horrendous pacing to understand them, and I think that's where you start to kind of lose people. I don't know that it's like, because I've liked some of the spin-off shows, like WandaVision was great, I enjoyed Loki, I know that one was polarizing, you know, like there's been some good kind of storytelling in there, but you know, I even enjoyed Miss Marvel for what it was. It was kind of like fun family show, you know, whatever. Like it kind of, you know, it's definitely.
I like
for kids,
the stuff that kind of winks. Like I like the stuff that doesn't take itself so seriously. You know, like
it had heart, and that's the thing. Is so much of this stuff just feels like it has no heart anymore, and it's just like, oh, you know, you saw this person around, don't you want to see a movie about them? And it's like, well, I don't know.
Well, it's and. You know, I listen a lot
say that,
to...
and even like, you know, like even a flop for Ant-Man and Quantumania like made 104 million. Like that was, you know, that was its opening weekend. And yes, that was like less than other MCU movies have done. I think it's like the lowest opening ever for them, but it's still more than Oppenheimer made in its opening weekend. And so like, I don't think that this stuff is like going away. I just think that, unfortunately, the thing that I'm worried about, and I'm sorry for ranting here and
no,
like
go for it. I ranted a lot before we got there.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm worried about is that studios are going to learn the wrong lesson from this. They're like, well, we just haven't franchised the right IP. You know, we need to like make more Mattel movies. You know, that's what we've learned from this, is that we need a movie just called Ken. You know, or you know, we need a movie about.
Well, that was a takeaway from a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, they're like, you know, I want, you know, they're like, you know what we need? What we haven't been doing is we haven't had enough movies that are diametrically opposed in terms of the way that they look and like their seriousness and whatever. And so we just need more, you know, we need more Barbenheimer. You know, we got to coordinate these movies so that they come out and we can do like quirky social media marketing about, oh, isn't it funny that like this movie about an atomic bomb is coming out at the same time as this movie about Barbie? So that's why I'm excited for Saw Patrol when the new Saw movie releases alongside the Paw Patrol movie. And I think that is what's really going to bring theaters back, is the people want Saw Patrol.
Yeah, they're gonna release a Bluey movie at the same time when they finally like franchise or they franchise some like Odd Jobs thing, you know.
They're like, no, they're going to
Make a
release
Blue
the next
Jobs.
Batman movie at the same time as Spider-Man, and they're like, aren't you excited for Spider-Man? The cro-
Bat
wait, no, Bat Spider.
Spider?
I don't know. It's Spider Bat.
Yeah,
Anyway, I'm
I
excited
just-
for them being like, you know what, we need to double down on crossovers. We're gonna do DC versus Marvel. And
that's
Endgame.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
No, we're
probably
we're
is
gonna
happen.
we're definitely gonna get like at some point. Shit, I almost wonder if we're gonna get like a Star Wars Marvel thing within Disney.
God.
You know, like we're just gonna keep crossing stuff over until and hoping it works. It sucks that and look, me, I'm very cynical, and this is just kind of like who I am at this point. But I do find myself wondering, the lesson to take from this is if you want even IP stuff to sell at its maximum return, you have to take the time to make it good. You can't just promise your corporate overlords and your shareholders all of these movies a decade into the future and then execute those however you have to throw them together to actually hit those target dates.
The biggest example of this is Sony just being like, we are not going to give up the Spider-Man rights, and we're just going to make spin-off movies about the villains, but without Spider-Man. You know?
Right.
It's
yeah.
Like
and
that's
it's just like
shameless IP branding, as film.
and none of those have resonated. Morbius is like a joke. Like it's an actual joke.
It's Morbin time, baby.
Yeah. And so like I know that I am cynical and I hope that this isn't actually the case, but I kind of feel like these executives are doing whatever they can to ignore the actual message from all of this, to ignore the actual lesson in all of this. And we see this at a time when like writers and actors are on strike because these ghouls are in these positions of power where they're hoping that AI can do a good enough job to have the holes filled in and create a movie that has this IP backing, but just won't have a soul, because it turns out an important part of the writing process is having a soul, and artificial intelligence computers aren't going to have a soul. That's like the thing about them.
Disagree. I'm excited for the movie The Lizard, about the Spider-Man villain, The Lizard, written by AI and all generated by automatic CGI coming in 2029.
It's going to be great. It's going to be so great. And it's just like
Tom Holland might be in the post-credit scene. You never know. You got to go see to find out.
You sit through 2 hours of shit just so you can maybe get like a psst, and then that's
you might get a little preview of what's next. Isn't that what's important to you about movies? And that's the other thing with like all this stuff. Is like so much of it just feels like they're like, oh yeah, aren't you? It's just setting up the next thing instead of being a story unto itself.
Right. And that's the thing though, is that like you look at the movies that have had success. Guardians of the Galaxy felt very much not a part of whatever Marvel is doing over there. It honestly felt like James Gunn made that movie and told his audience, hey, if you like this, I'm doing this thing over there, by the way.
Yeah.
It was a perfect timing for him
Surprised
to
they
go
didn't list
like,
him as DC's James Gunn in the in the credits.
changes his middle name, James.
He legally
DC
changed
Gunn.
his name.
Yeah. But you look at even if it's IP stuff, they are stories unto themselves, right? Guardians was a story unto itself. And Avatar 2 was its own story unto itself. And, Top Gun was like shockingly a great, like a really, it had no business being as good a story as it was. And like, that's the thing though with those movies, it takes investment. It takes time. It takes collaboration. It takes creativity and then like what Feige, this should be his whole job, is linking these.
I believe it's Feige. Did you just make him
Feige?
his name sound more like mine, just like as an effort to get mad at him?
That would be funny. That would be a Freudian slip. That would be.
Yeah.
But Feige though, like it should be what I really enjoyed, and this was something like this was a strong suit of early MCU stuff, was he would tell his directors, hey, you're going to go build Wakanda over there. You're going to go build, Captain America, and you're going to go build, whatever in all of these places, and let me do the hard
let me
work.
Worry about connecting the pieces.
Yeah, and they need to get back to that. And whatever it takes, like they need to get back to that on
Instead
all
of just
of
having
these
the whole
things.
movie be setting up or TV show be, hey, aren't you excited about this next thing?
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge / Hollywood Lounge, whatever we want to call the last little part there. Look, this is the time of year
there were
where
lots of deals being made in like the Forum Club and stuff. So it's the
they're
Lakers
definitely-
Lounge would theoretically have entertainment talk. This is LA, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, can't wait. A couple weeks for the movie or for the next series. But anyway, thank you very much, Harrison, for hopping on. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will be back in a couple days when Aaron and I talk about whatever it is that Aaron and I are going to talk about.